how do you convince a young person to pursue a career? What's the motivation around, to be honest? I might be tough.
Honestly, there's no motivation.
So, I mean, can just go on TikTok and dance and make my annual salary in one day.
Hi again. Welcome to this episode of my podcast. It's Osewe Herman, your host, and today I have Simi. Simi, do you want to do a brief intro?
Thank you, sir, for having me. My name is Simi. Hi, guys. It's my pleasure to be here.
Simi, for those that do not know you, how would you describe yourself?
In a nutshell, I like to get things done. So I think of myself as an execution expert. Yeah.
Nice. So I think the next question I have for you is, what does impact mean to you?
Impact could mean a lot of things, especially when you talk about impact in the context of a community. Largely, impact could be the level of influence you have. It could be things as simple as that. Impact could be the kind of records you've been able to break. Impact could be how you've been able to get things done, make things better, and a lot of that. And impact could be as simple as look at mothers, for example. It could be as simple as raising a child that is like doing a lot of great things and things like that. So it has a very broad spectrum. So it depends on which context you would like me to speak about impact.
Well, I think I would like to speak about it in what you think your impact is.
A little bit into my career, I've been around for about 17 years.
Okay.
About 15 of those I've spent largely in the power sector.
Okay.
Impact for me had been the many national projects that I've been privileged to work on. For example, I've done projects that have scaled the power sector in Nigeria. I've done a couple of projects across Africa. So professionally, that's how I see impact. On the other side, I've also been privileged to have led a lot of people. I've mentored a few people. I believe I've influenced a lot of people professionally this time around. Impact then is also how people just see your career. They feel like, okay, I like this what this guy is doing. Let me see how I can model my career along the lines of this guy.
Okay, I know you spoke about your impact being mainly, your career, things you've done, people you've impacted. I think I would just like to have a bit of light or for you to share a bit of a journey into your career. What led you here? Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I have a background in computer science. Started with coding, just like many of my generation started.
Nice.
And I recall when I started coding, there was no Udemy, there was no LinkedIn, and there was shortly then I think there was no Twitter. I'm not sure there was Twitter, but there was Facebook. So I would go to Computer Village in Lagos, under the bridge, buy some books about coding, and then I had a very old laptop. You learn some of these things, and the challenges I had was the ability to run some of these codes. So, but that taught me resilience. Sometimes I recall that there was a time I found an error. I had an error. I didn't know what it was. I spent like 3 days trying to figure it out. There was no Stack Overflow or some platform where you could go to just figure out what people were doing. And nowadays there's AI. You could just run your code in AI. It cannot tell you what is wrong. But that sort of taught me resilience. Keep at it. And it was very boring. It was a long process. So after that, I did coding for about 2 to 5 years. But tech was not like it is now in Nigeria. So a couple of my other friends that were coding were not making a lot of the money. And I noticed that people that were making most of the money were business people.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, okay, these business people, what do they even do? Is it about wearing ties, etc., and all over the place? So as luck would have it, I served in a company that won a contract to do some projects in Ghana. I was not supposed to be on the team that was supposed to travel to Ghana. But for some strange luck, I didn't have an international passport. So I found myself managing projects in the power sector. This was near 16, 17 years ago. That was how the whole thing then shaped up. I picked up that interest, became a project manager. From there, joined a tech company that was one of the first companies to raise large funding in Nigeria, did a lot of projects on national scale, and was there, grew from a project manager, eventually left as a general manager. While I was there, joined another power company, did a couple of things here and there. And today I'm trying to put electricity in people's houses.
Nice. So in what way would you say like generators, renewable energy?
The entire spectrum. Again, I'm one of the few people that have been very, very lucky to have done solutions across the entire spectrum. So I've done the tech side, and I'm talking Internet of Things, master data management platforms for disco systems. By disco, I mean distribution, electricity distribution companies, etc. And I've also done a couple of things around the gas side. And I've done the solar home systems. I've done the mini grid systems, microgrid systems. But now I'm also now very neck deep into large scale energy as a service and grid scale systems.
Nice. Thank God you even mentioned mini grid because I was going to talk about, I've heard that you're on team that, or you're part of the first people to build the first mini grid in Africa.
Well, I don't know about Africa, maybe Nigeria.
Okay.
Right. So, two experiences. Number one, I used to work for a company. They were building a mini grid, I think in 2015. So, no. I used to work for another company, but the company that I know the founder was building a mini grid in 2015. So they had a lot of challenges collecting money. And the challenge basically was because there was no internet connectivity in the village where they were building the mini grid. So they gave me an offer actually to come join. I think they offered me 0.8% of the company, which I did not take. I don't know if I should regret, but I mean, the company is doing well now.
No.
We came in, sort of drew the architecture, designed the architecture, because I had a lot of experience in software engineering. They had a lot of challenges collecting funds, right? So I had some like pretty young, smart engineers then. One of them, I think he still works for Flutterwave, was one of the first few people that Flutterwave hired. So we designed an offline architecture, which because of time may not be able to go into the details. So, but basically the way it works is we're able to bridge that gap of collections. But before then, I'd done some smaller systems here and there around mini grids, maybe like 5-10 kilowatt systems somewhere around in the state and things like that.
So what would you say now that there is more technology, there is more, what would you say you would do different if you were to do that project again?
So I think that, again, if you study the power sector, right, funding flows upstream, downstream, but cash flows downstream, upstream. So what does that mean? For example, you are building a mini grid. You get in your funding and things like that. But again, there's the affordability gap. People must be able to pay for it.
Yeah.
So that's number one. The first thing I'm going to solve is to ensure how I ensure that people have the ability to pay for these things. Yes, there are technologies that can help, but unfortunately, the gap we still have is that whilst a lot of this technology can predict your ability to pay. For example, I can look at your statement of account and say, okay, you can afford this. But I cannot predict your willingness to pay. And hopefully AI can solve that. I've tried to model some models, blah, 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 and I couldn't figure it out yet. So the challenge then again is how do you then model the ability of people to pay? I mean, the willingness of people to pay for these things. That's the first thing I'm going to do differently. Secondly, obviously there are better technologies. Batteries are cheaper, they are more resilient. So what that means is that your mini grid or whatever systems you've built can last or say the test of time. Thirdly, the perception around renewable energy has largely improved, thanks to the kinds of work that the likes of Tesla, BYD, all these folks into electric vehicles are doing. But beyond that, there's a lot of positive reception around some of these things. So the beauty of that then is that some of the barriers or the challenge that people face in adopting these technologies are no longer there.
Yeah, I like that you even spoke about the things that people used to think about. What would you say is the biggest misconception about renewable energy?
It does not work.
Mm.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
So people say it does not work, and that's not true. It works. Right? My parents.
I'm an advocate.
My
I'm
parents.
personally an advocate.
I have this emotional story I want to tell. My dad last saw. I grew up in Ondo town, right? Raised by very hardworking civil servants. The last time my dad saw stable electricity for 24 hours was 1979. Until I was privileged to put a solar system in their house May 2021. And for the first time in, I don't know how many years that was the first time he saw electricity 24/7, that it worked. 2 years later, he was so used to electricity so there was a small issue. So they were offline for like 24 hours. The man was telling me that he almost died. because it was not used to not seeing electricity. So
Yeah.
it works really. My house
Yeah.
in Lagos is nearly off grid.
Yeah.
You know, if grid collapses in Nigeria, I don't really know. You're right, I'm fine. So that's the first misconception that we've been able to, thankfully, a lot of us have been able to fix. And two is also around affordability and the cost. You know, people say it's expensive, but by the time you do some cost benefit analysis, you look at the fact that your panel is there for at least 10, 15, 20 years. Your batteries gives you close to 5, 7 years if you buy a very good one, plus the cost of convenience, plus you don't make noise again. I read somewhere humorously that Nigerians make a lot of noise because we are used to generator sounds, right?
Yeah.
And these are some of the cost, right? The secondary cost that is literally eliminated because now solar works in your house. So it works, really.
So, no, I agree with that 100% because like even me as well, my parents, I don't think they even use grid for like 3 years now because they got
That's
into
nice.
solar system.
Yeah.
But I know people like big industries, right, that
Mhm.
have large energy needs, right,
Mhm.
and to get batteries for those people very
Mhm.
expensive. How would you say those people are able to realize the cost benefits of having a system?
My wish I was a marker here and a
A
pen.
whiteboard.
So I actually think better when I write. I mean, that's just the way I'm wired. But think about the cost of inefficiencies. Look at the number of companies that dropped offline in Nigeria, for example. If you're very familiar with your background access, it used to be a major hub for manufacturing. Half of these folks left. Most of these folks, I mean, left because there's no electricity. So if you are to start anything today in Nigeria or most of sub-Saharan countries, the first thing you have to start thinking about is the cost of electricity, which largely, depending on school of thought, average takes about 40% of your total OPEX, right? Now to come, and what you're beginning to see now is some level of understanding of how to structure a solar or an energy contract. So meaning that even without being exposed to the initial capex, for example, you can still enjoy that 247 electricity for 10, 15, 20 years, depending on whatever kind of model
Was
that,
good for you.
yeah. And just, just before we started this, we're having some conversations. And currently I'm working on something. I think that with about $3 million, we could be able to deploy an 8 megawatt hour solar for a key manufacturing hub. Now, when you look at the level of efficiency that brings to the system versus the productivity that it brings to the system versus the improved employee morale that brings to the system, plus a lot of other benefits, secondary benefits from carbon credits, carbon trading, from a lot of other benefits that these things bring, then you would agree likely that it then makes sense for companies to start to look at this direction.
So we hope we've been able to convince you and not confuse you about the
Well,
benefits of.
well, this is not a sales call. If this is sales, then we can bring some data sets too.
Yeah.
But largely, what we're saying is that you can actually be energy self-sufficient. And the barriers that we used to have, which was, it was expensive, there's no cash, front cost, etc. There are a lot of funding that is available to sort of fund solar projects today. There are a lot of investors that are looking for opportunities. In fact, one of my problems that I have today is I've got a fund that is interested in powering healthcare and education related projects across Africa. Now, I struggle to even find worthy projects to present. So the fund is there. The reality is, how do you then find that company that is around in the next 7 years? How are you sure the founders are not just trying to make some money, get passports, and run away from Africa? So these are the secondary challenges that we currently face in the industry. And I don't think it's limited to energy alone. I think it's across board.
I agree. So I think just generally, I know you have a lot of career milestones that you've hit, but what's one particular one that, matters very, very personally to you, or you always,
Mm, that's very tough.
because you have a lot.
So that's tough. If there's something that I think I did that probably top three, this was 2012. I started just learning search engine optimization. And I used to work for a company where we used to do beyond technology consulting. So we also used to do project management training. So then this was the era of digital, strategy in Nigeria. This was 2012, I think, yeah, by the way. So my boss at that time went to England and bought a book. I can't remember the title of the book, it was around search engine optimization. So I read this book because I understood coding. I knew how to manipulate, maybe not the right words, but I knew how to find my way around HTML and things like that. So I read this book, and in 3 months, when I started optimizing this website, we're not on first 40 pages on Google, but 3 months later, we were number 2 on page 1.
We'll talk later about what's your impact.
So, and I remember that as my boss just searched, like we were number 2, the guy ran into my office, said, "Simi, we are number 2. We are number 2." Then ordered meat pie. Then again, when I look back, we had some of the most incredible people.
Yeah.
One of them runs a tech hub in the UK. The other one, the members of the team, used to be a program manager in Google. I don't know what she does now. So that was quite impactful. That was the first major breakthrough I had in terms of when you keep your heart at it, when you focus on it, when you dig deep, you could actually make a lot of impact. The second will be, I remember my first major promotion as when I had my first P&L experience. It was a company that was really, really struggling, right? I was working in a group of company. We were about 7 business leaders. Everybody had left. And I was, in my unit, I was like the only person left. And it was so sad that I recall I had this NPR session and my CFO didn't attend my NPR. I'm like, "Oh, why didn't you come?" Say, "Well, your entire revenue is less than my monthly salary. So why would I come waste my time?"
Yeah.
So, and I was going to give up, right? I got offers from companies I don't want to mention, like top fintech companies in Nigeria. Like one of them became a unicorn, right? So, but at the point of giving up, one of my friends just called me, said, "Simi, all of us here, you're the only one that understands tech and business. You are the only one that can enter a meeting without a developer and you scale it. So why not take up this challenge?" So I took up the challenge, right? And by 18 months later, we were number 2. I had grown the business. A lot of the narrative had changed. We went from no single product to about 4 products as of the time I was leaving, and we won a major deal with a major government in Nigeria. We had launched projects that had done massively well. And the highlight of that experience was that we built a master data management platform in Nigeria. These are systems that's never been done, that were built by Oracle and Siemens, some of these top guys. But this was built by Nigerians in Nigeria. No external. Of course, we have a lot of support from the founders of the company in terms. So you just get it done. And I think that they provided a couple of funding, but that was also very impactful. And the third would be, I've been privileged to have advised. I've had interns that run a multi-million-dollar company today. And it's so embarrassing that I was on a beach and I saw one of them. He had just raised $15 million. So this guy was with his staff. He just frustrated. I was like, it was so embarrassing, right? Like, these are guys that have done incredible stuff, right? That I've been privileged to have worked with, that have offered a few advice here and there that has helped transform their career.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think on the back of that, I would like to also know your biggest frustration in your
It's
career.
people.
I mean,
So people, right? And I say people because, again, because I like to get things done. I don't really have a lot of appraiser for what you call process. I hate bureaucracies. It gets me angry. It enters, I don't know, it affects me. So I don't understand sometimes where you have unnecessary stage gates at every execution gate. So that was why I said people. And I've had a few failures too, where you just try to bring the best out of some people. You just try, do all your best, you just give up, right? So my greatest frustration really, number 1, had been people. 2 had been the volatility of, especially in Nigeria. 2021 September, we were doing a strategy session for a major energy company. And so we're predicting what dollar would be. It was 410 naira to $1. So there was a lot of back and forth and argument. And I said, well, let's model 1,000. This was September 2021. Everybody in the room, is impossible. Of course, the CFO said it can never happen. So nobody listened. So we modeled 600. By January, we have not even started executing that strategy. All our model had gone. So how do you explain 3 years devaluation in your strategy? It's almost impossible. How do you hedge those kind of risk? So those experiences, though were very frustrating, but in hindsight, were also some of the reasons why a couple of us that were involved in this kind of transactions had that superior edge to be able to sort of figure out some of these extremely complex scenarios.
Nice. So, what role do you think young innovators can play in shaping the future of sustainability in Africa, especially people that don't have a technical background? Because I kind of find that having a technical background gives you an edge, right, in most things, to be honest. So, what would you say to people that?
So, what do you mean by technical background? So, for example, is an accountant technical, or a finance person is that, or you mean analytical engineering?
Analytical engineering. That's what I mean.
All right. So, one of the roles that, again, before I answer that question, I think that the first thing is, we that are the older generation, again, what kind of examples are we giving to these people? How do you convince a young person to pursue a career? What's the motivation around, to be honest? I might be tough.
Honestly, there's no motivation.
So, I mean, it can just, with all due respect, it can just go. I don't mean to talk down at anybody's career or whatever. People just have to do what they have to do, right? You can just go on TikTok and dance and make my annual salary in one day.
Yeah.
Right, of course. Maybe everybody will not eventually get to the top of TikTok, right? Because that's another very brutality, right? That's another brutal assessment. So, but I think that the first thing is you have to just love it.
Yeah.
It starts from having a passion for excellence, having to want to change, do something differently. That's number one. Two, again, sourcing for knowledge. And again, I don't think you have to be technical, right? Yes, I studied computer science, but I'm not an engineer. Yes, I understand technical things, but at some level, I also have to lean on people that are smarter in those areas, right? But I think that understanding of basic decision making, and the willingness to learn is one of where I think it can start from. And the role, because young people have a lot of audience, is to then help drive that awareness. So we need to give them those tools such that they understand that the future is sustainability. We don't have any other choice than to preserve our environment. And sustainable energy is one of the ways to achieve that.
Nice. So I think you've spoken from the kind of what older people should set for the younger ones. But I think I would like to hear from a point of view, like for a younger person, right, trying to create an impact not only in the sustainable industry, right, trying to actually build a career that matters, that would drive impact not only in their lives, in other people's lives as well. What would you say one thing that, or one or two things that the person should hold on to?
To be honest, I think it's more than one or two things, right? It's a whole spectrum. But I think that the first thing, looking back, was I just wanted excellence. So for me, I just wanted to be excellent. So I think the first thing is to desire it. You have to desire to build a great career. That's number one. Two, it has to be on your own terms. And I can be very honest here that even I feel some pressure. A couple of my friends that were all on the same level, everybody had left the country, maybe doing bigger things. But I just love it here. And it takes a lot of resilience to say, I just love this country and I feel I can make a change here, right? So the first thing is, that desire has to be there. Number two is find a very good role model, right? This doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes. Find a role model. I never really had a mentor for the first 10 years of my career. I mean, mentorship as it were. My mentors were the books I read, right? So I read a lot of books, learned a lot from books, watched a lot of YouTube contents that just helped shape the way I think, the way I do things. Then I also observed a lot. And that's number two. Then number three, your first manager really, really matters. I was very lucky that, and I wrote about this on LinkedIn, my first major manager resigned because he had promised me a raise, got approval from the board chairman, promised me a raise, and said I should come collect my letter on Monday. On Monday, I got to the office. He said, Simi, I'm sorry, I can't give you a letter. I said, but guy, you promised. He said, yes, they gave me the award. Then on Fridays, they all said, I'm leaving. I'm like, why are you leaving? He said, no, I can't work with you. I promised you based on what the confirmation I got. And these people let me down. And that touched me. Then my second major manager on the other side, I used to think he lacked empathy. I mean, it was a pardon my use of language. It was a madman, right? And I recall that 2010 April, we were trying to do some things on Google Earth. I can't remember if there was Google Map. So, and he looked at me and said, Shebi, you studied computer science. Don't you think? That statement shaped my career forever. And I vowed nobody will ever question my ability to think. You can say a lot of things, everybody's perfect, but you will never say, oh, Simi does not think critically. And that required a lot of resilience, a lot of investment in myself. So, if you have a very great manager, it's not that, he may not be a nice person, but this is somebody that wants the best from you, that provides the best resources for you to thrive. And I was very lucky for these two people that had met. That's two. Number three, there's also a lot of work. There's a lot of setback. You won't get all the promotions. It's not every promotion that you think is due to you that you get. I was passed for a key promotion because I speak up a lot in meetings. I couldn't just not be radically candid. And at some level, you are not allowed to be. I couldn't just be radically. I mean, that's who I was, right?
Yeah.
Or who I am. But as you get more experience, right, you now develop more emotional intelligence, creative ways of saying things, right? But when we were younger, we just say the way it was, So again, and those things come with a lot of mentorship, a lot of, and maybe the fourth one I would say is, if you're very lucky, or do your best to work for a proper company. There's a lot of people here that are just running all over the streets, just running to just get things done. They're clueless about what this takes. And it affects a lot of young people. It's so really, really sad.
Yeah.
An example I used to share is during the wave of this tech boom, I think about 5-6 years ago, where you see a lot of young people get international opportunities, 10x, 15x of their pay. Unfortunately, some of them lost these jobs. They could not secure another opportunity in Nigeria because obviously Nigeria does not pay that high, right? So there is the salary band that somebody is already used to. Maybe some folks are already on $9-10K a month, but their skill set in the context of Nigeria is maybe very, very low. So when they could not sustain an opportunity, it was difficult for them to then match up that opportunity in Nigeria. The reason is because people don't really build depth. So you have to be very deep. You have to be very versatile. You have to so you cannot just build a narrow career. You have to be very broad. You can't say, for example, I'm an accountant. If you're in energy, you must understand the laws around energy. You must understand regulations.
Yeah.
Even if you're an accountant. If you are a business developer, for example, you must understand energy accounting. You must understand technical things, even if you are not an engineer. I mean, you must at least be able to explain how a solar plant works.
Yeah.
Right. So those are some of the advice that I think people may find useful.
And I think one of the last questions I have is what you're excited about for the future of Nigeria in the next, say, 5-10 years, since you love Nigeria so much.
By the way, I'm not saying that if I see opportunity, I saw that we can go and come back. So it's very difficult to predict the future, right? And I don't think I'm an expert at predicting the future.
Are you sure? You predicted 1K.
But one of the things I'm good at is I can predict a great career. I can tell if this person will end well. Basically, what do? You look at
that's the second thing we'll speak about.
Okay, maybe let me not go into that. So you have to look at, and I was listening to one of Fela's songs when I was coming here. This was a song he did probably 40 years ago. And nothing has really, really changed about all he complained about. Mm-hmm. So in my head, I'm like, okay, he was complaining about democracy. He was saying, oh, they don't count votes, blah, blah, blah. So maybe there have been some improvements, but in reality, we still likely have those challenges. So I think that there's a lot of young population in Nigeria. I think that digital penetration has really improved. I think that there are a lot of opportunities for young Nigerians, and I'm talking largely within the sphere of career. But in terms of where I think that Nigeria will go, I think that there's a lot of funding that will come into Nigeria because there's a lot of stranded cash here and there. The only challenge is if we can fix the major challenge, I mean, if you can fix this trust barrier, where if you put that money in, people can use the money largely for, what they're supposed to use it for.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, and I think I saw an article recently that says pound for pound in terms of return on investment, Lagos has produced most of the unicorns, I think, in Africa. So even within these challenges, there are a lot of good things to look up to. And I think that, Nigeria will be the way it's always been. One of my mentors that I never really met physically, but I learned a lot from his works. He said he was in a meeting and people asked him similar question to predict the future. He said the future will always be as it has always been. There will be challenges, there will be growth, there will be wins, there will be rain, there will be sunshine. It has always been like that for the last 6,000 years. So 5 years time from Nigeria, there will be investments, there will be job losses, there will be new opportunities. Probably we might start to see new unicorns.
Nice, thank you. So do you have any passing words? Like any
I was talking about, what was I talking
listen
about?
to this because he has advised people that have raised or that own $1 billion companies.
And so so in the context of career, right, first you have to believe in yourself. So sometimes you may not have like superior education, and by superior maybe you're not privileged to go to some of the best schools, or maybe your parents couldn't afford it, or for some reasons. But first it starts from, you have to believe that you have what it takes to build a great career. Number two, you must be ready to work for it. It takes a lot of attitude. I remembered I was on honeymoon. I got married, and a week into the wedding, I was on leave into the marriage. I mean, I was supposed to be on honeymoon. My company that I used to work for won a contract. In fact, I was on a hill where my wife and I were, I don't know, and my phone rang that, oh, Simi, please, can you come back to work? Maybe I loved work too much. Then I showed up. Secondly, you have to show up. You have to show up. And it's tough. It's tough showing up, right? I've had to wake up 2 a.m. to go pick people that I was expecting, some of my partners. And I have admin staff who said it was their job, but they refused to show up. Of course, how do I force people to show up 2 a.m.? So you have to show up. That's number two. Number three, you must also be committed to a life of learning. You have to learn a lot. There's a lot to learn. There are new things every day. I read somewhere that whatever you know today has a lifespan of 18 months, right? And maybe that's true, right? Especially if you are in an industry that is extremely dynamic. So there's a lot of learning that is involved. And four, which I think you can actually survive without this number four, right? Networking, yeah, you can network. But again, I think it's even easier these days. I mean, if you're the shy type, you don't like to really connect to people physically, you can do that offline. And I think number five that we are now beginning to see, I think that what may now determine, maybe this is the icing on building a great career, is your branding. How do people perceive you? And I'm not talking about sticking to wearing your black shirt or having a branded skill. Those things are just waste of everybody's time. I mean, maybe not, but really. But I'm talking about when people speak behind you, what do they really say? When there are opportunities that pop up, what do they really say? There was a company that was hiring for a role in an area that had strength. And the hiring manager spoke to 4 different people. 2 of them know me in person. One of them had worked with me in a company. The other person just saw me spoke somewhere. So I didn't know this till I came for the interview to have a conversation. So the questions were just all relaxed. So out of curiosity, I started asking. So the guy said, oh, by the way, 4 people had recommended you. This thing had happened to me twice in my career. Another company was hiring for 2 different roles, right? So they had these personnel that go look for maybe talent. So they're all staff of the same company. 3 of them came back with the same CV. right? For different roles, different sector. And I recall that when I eventually met the partner, I said, why is everybody, why? I've just seen your
Everybody have
name.
your CV.
I've just seen your name everywhere. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And it's because I just was very intentional about building that reputation of getting things done, right? Although this level that I am now is more about influence, right? Because it's also really, really tough getting things done, especially around this part. So my final words is simple, right? If you listen to this, you're already on the right path. There's nothing else to add. Just continue to follow this podcast. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you can learn.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, filter out. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things that will come, but if you're very, very intentional about what you hear, I believe that podcasts such as this can provide a platform for people. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Simi, for that, promotion. Thank you for watching this episode. It was very insightful, even to me, and I think you should definitely listen to this particular episode over and over again if you want to build your own billion-dollar company. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and our social media platforms as well. Thanks for watching again. See you in the next episode. Bye.